Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. The bridge of the New Horizon filled with red warning lights as his crew rushed to their stations. Jake set down his mug and walked quickly to the command. "Chair, what do we have, Lieutenant?" Jake asked his communications officer. "Unknown ships approaching from the outer system, sir. They're big." "Really big," Lieutenant Amy Carter said, her voice tight with concern. "I'm reading at least 50 vessels, maybe more." Jake felt his stomach drop. The New Horizon was a diplomatic vessel, not a warship. They carried scientists and ambassadors, not soldiers. The ship had been conducting routine surveys near the edge of human space when these unknown vessels appeared. "Are they trying to communicate?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. The computer is working on translation now." The main screen flickered to life, showing a massive alien fleet. The ships were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. They were long and sleek, with crystalline structures growing from their hulls like frozen lightning. Each vessel was at least 3 times the size of the New Horizon. "Translation coming through now, sir," Amy reported. A deep voice filled the bridge, speaking in heavily accented English. "Unknown vessels, you will identify yourselves immediately. You are in violation of Zephyrian space. Prepare to be boarded." Jake exchanged glances with his science officer, Dr. Lisa Brooks. She was a tall woman with graying hair who had studied alien cultures for 20 years. Her face was pale as she stared at the screen. "Zephyrians," she whispered. "I've never heard of them." "Open a channel," Jake ordered. The main screen changed to show the interior of an alien bridge. The being that appeared was tall and blue-skinned, with what looked like small crystals growing from his forehead. His eyes were bright yellow and cold as winter ice. "I am High Commander Vextile of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire," the alien said. "You will surrender your vessel immediately." Jake straightened in his chair. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel New Horizon. We are a peaceful diplomatic ship conducting scientific research. We were not aware this system was claimed by your empire." High Commander Vextile made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peaceful? How amusing. All species claim to be peaceful. When first encountered, it matters not. You will surrender or be destroyed." "We have no intention of fighting," Jake said carefully. "Perhaps we can discuss this situation. We are always interested in meeting new species and establishing trade relationships." "Trade?" Vextile's expression became even colder. "You misunderstand. Your position, human. The Zephyrian Empire does not trade with inferior species. We conquer them. We add them to our empire. You will surrender your ship and your crew will be processed." Dr. Brooks leaned forward. "Processed? What does that mean?" "Your useful individuals will become servants of the empire. The rest will be eliminated. This is the way of things. We have conquered 43 species in the past 1,000 years. Each thought they could resist. Each was wrong." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We are not interested in joining your empire. We suggest you leave our space immediately." This time Vextile definitely laughed. "Your space? You have perhaps a dozen small colonies scattered across a few systems. We have mapped your entire territory. You number less than 50 billion across all your worlds. The Zephyrian Empire controls 3,000 systems and over 2 trillion subjects." The alien commander gestured to someone off-screen. "You will observe our generosity. We grant you 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Use this time wisely. Contact your leaders. Tell them the Zephyrian Empire has come. Tell them resistance is futile, and if we refuse," Jake asked, "then we will demonstrate why 43 species have learned not to refuse. Your colonies will burn. Your ships will be destroyed. Your people will serve or die. The choice is yours." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. "Sir," Amy said quietly, "long-range sensors are detecting more ships, a lot more. I'm reading thousands of vessels moving toward human space." Jake rubbed his forehead. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Already working on it, sir? Amy replied. Admiral Phillips is standing by. The screen shifted to show a gray-haired man in a blue uniform. Admiral George Phillips had been Jake's mentor when he was a young officer. The old man's face was grim. Jake, we've been monitoring your situation. How many ships are we looking at? At least 10,000, Admiral, maybe more. They're claiming to be the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. They say they've conquered 43 species. What are their demands? Complete surrender within 72 hours. They want to process our populations. From what I can tell, that means slavery or death. Admiral Phillips was quiet for a long moment. Jake, I want you to record a message. For them, tell them we need time to consider their offer. Buy us as much time as you can. Admiral, they seem pretty confident about their abilities. They've done this before, I'm sure they have. But they've never done it to us. Phillips leaned forward. Jake, I'm uploading classified files to your ship. Share them with Dr. Brooks. I want her opinion on these aliens. Dr. Brooks moved to her station and began reviewing the incoming data. Her eyes widened as she read. Captain, these files contain information about dozens of species that have been conquered by the Zephyrians. The pattern is always the same. They arrive, demand surrender, then overwhelm local defenses with superior numbers. What about their technology? Jake asked. It's advanced, but not beyond what we've seen before. Their weapons appear to be plasma-based. Their ships rely on energy shields for protection. Their tactics are straightforward. They use overwhelming force to break enemy resistance quickly. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the massive alien fleet. They certainly have the numbers for overwhelming force. Captain, Amy interrupted. Incoming transmission from the Zephyrian fleet. High Commander Vextel appeared on screen again. Human Captain, have you contacted your superiors? Yes, Commander. We are discussing your offer. Excellent. And what is your response? Jake looked at Admiral Phillips, who nodded slightly. We request additional time to consider your generous offer. 72 hours is not sufficient for us to contact all our colonies and coordinate a response. Very well. You have 100 hours. Use them wisely. We will not extend this deadline again. The transmission ended. Admiral Phillips reappeared. On the screen. Jake, I'm recalling all diplomatic vessels to Earth immediately. I want you to head home as fast as possible. What about the negotiations? There won't be any negotiations. We're going to give them one final warning to leave our space. If they refuse, we'll show them why humanity has never lost a war when we're forced to fight. Dr. Brooks looked confused. Admiral, we're facing a fleet of 10,000 ships. How can we possibly resist that kind of force? Admiral Phillips smiled. But it wasn't a pleasant expression. Doctor, those aliens made one critical mistake. They assumed our colonies were civilian settlements. They assumed our exploration ships were our military vessels. They assumed we were like the other species they've conquered. What do you mean? Jake asked. They've never fought a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare against itself. They've never encountered a civilization that turned every settlement into a fortress and every citizen into a soldier. They think they know what they're facing. Admiral Phillips stood up. They're about to learn they were wrong. Dead wrong. The transmission ended, leaving Jake staring at the empty screen. Outside, the Zephyrian fleet continued its advance toward human space. Confident in their inevitable victory, they had no idea what was waiting for them. The emergency meeting at Earth Command had been going on for 6 hours. Admiral George Phillips sat at the head of a long table surrounded by humanity's top military leaders. The room was filled with the quiet hum of computers and the occasional shuffle of papers. The Zephyrian fleet will reach the outer colonies in 48 hours, reported General Carol Martinez, head of Colonial Defense. Our scouts confirm at least 12,000 ships. Their technology is advanced but not beyond our capabilities. Admiral Phillips nodded slowly. What about their previous conquests? Do we have any intelligence on their methods? Dr. Kevin Walsh. Earth's chief military strategist pulled up a holographic display. We've analyzed their pattern across 43 conquered species. They always follow the same approach. Overwhelming force, demand surrender, then systematic occupation. Most species surrender within days. Any species that fought back? Asked Colonel Ben Rodriguez. Several tried. The longest resistance lasted 3 weeks. The Zephyrians have never encountered sustained military opposition. They rely on fear and superior numbers. Phillips stood and walked to the large window overlooking the sprawling military complex. Ships moved constantly in the sky above, but these weren't the civilian vessels the Zephyrians had observed. These were warships, hidden in plain sight. "Gentlemen, ladies," Phillips said, turning back to the room, "I'm going to authorize Protocol 7 across all human colonies. It's time to show these aliens what they're really dealing with." The room fell silent. Protocol 7 was humanity's most classified military directive. It had been developed during the resource wars 2 centuries ago, when human colonies had to defend themselves against attacks from other human factions. "Sir," General Martinez said carefully, "are you sure? Once we implement Protocol 7, there's no going back. The galaxy will know what we really are." "They're going to find out anyway," Phillips replied. "Better they learn from our demonstration than from our defeat." Meanwhile, on the mining colony of Kepler 442b, Lieutenant Amy Carter received the coded transmission. She had been posing as a mining supervisor for 3 years, but her real job was much different. She was a military officer, and this colony was not what it appeared to be. "All department heads to the main conference room," Amy announced over the colony's communication system. "We have received new orders from Earth." 20 minutes later, the conference room was filled with men and women who had been pretending to be miners, engineers, and scientists. In reality, they were some of humanity's most skilled military personnel. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amy said, "we have just received authorization for Protocol 7. You know what this means." The room erupted in quiet but intense activity. Everyone knew their roles. The mining equipment that had been operating for years began to shut down. Hidden panels opened in the walls, revealing military-grade weapons and equipment. What the Zephyrians had observed as a simple mining operation was actually a military base disguised as a civilian colony. The miners were soldiers. The ore processing facilities were weapons manufacturing plants. The communication arrays were military sensor networks. On the exploration ship Pathfinder, Commander Rick Stone was coordinating with colonies across human space. His ship had been broadcasting detailed scans of the Zephyrian fleet to every human installation within 50 light years. "Pathfinder to all stations," Rick transmitted on a secured channel. "Enemy fleet composition confirmed. Standard Imperial. Formation, recommend defensive pattern Delta 7. The response came from dozens of locations across human space. What appeared to be civilian settlements were revealing themselves as military installations. Mining colonies activated weapon systems. Research stations deployed fighter squadrons. Trading posts became command centers. Captain Jake Morrison watched this transformation from the bridge of the New Horizon as it approached Earth. The space around humanity's home planet was filling with ships, but these weren't the civilian vessels the Zephyrians had seen in their intelligence reports. "My God," Dr. Lisa Brooks whispered as she watched the display. "How many ships do we have?" "More than the Zephyrians think," Jake replied. "A lot more." The truth was that humanity had never stopped preparing for war. The peace between human factions had been achieved through strength, not weakness. Every colony was a fortress. Every civilian ship had military applications. Every citizen received military training back on Earth. Admiral Phillips was preparing humanity's response to the Zephyrian ultimatum. He stood in the main communication center, surrounded by the most advanced communication equipment in human space. "Open a channel to the Zephyrian fleet," he ordered. High Commander Vextal appeared on the screen, his crystalline features showing obvious satisfaction. "Ah, another human leader. I trust you have considered our generous offer?" "I have," Phillips replied calmly. "I am Admiral George Phillips. Commander of the Human Defense Force, I have a message for you and your empire. Excellent. I assume you are prepared to surrender? No, Commander. I am prepared to give you one final warning. Leave our space immediately. Return to your empire and never come back. This is your last chance to avoid a war you cannot win. Vextol. Expression changed from satisfaction to amusement. A war we cannot win? Human. You face 12,000 ships of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. You have a few dozen colonies and perhaps 100 vessels. How do you expect to resist us? Commander, Philip said, his voice steady and cold, you have made a critical error. You have assumed we are like the other species you have conquered. You have assumed our colonies are civilian settlements. You have assumed our ships are exploration vessels. You have assumed we are weak. Are you claiming to be strong? Vexto laughed. We have conquered 43 species. We have never encountered resistance that lasted more than a few weeks. You are no different. We are very different, Philip said. We are the only species you have encountered that spent 10,000 years at war with itself. We are the only species that turned warfare into an art form. We are the only species that has been preparing for this moment our entire existence. The alien commander's laughter stopped. What are you saying? I am saying that every human colony is a military base. Every human ship is a weapon. Every human citizen is a soldier. We have been at peace for only 2 centuries, but we have never stopped preparing for war. Impossible, Vextol said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Commander, your intelligence reports showed small, defenseless colonies. What you actually observed were military installations pretending to be civilian settlements. Your scouts reported civilian ships and exploration vessels. What you actually encountered were warships operating under false identities. Phillips gestured to someone off-screen. The main display changed to show real-time images from across human space. Mining colonies were transforming into military bases. Civilian ships were revealing weapon systems. Hidden installations were coming online. This is what we really are, Phillips said. We tried to warn you. We tried to give you a chance to leave peacefully. But you chose to threaten us. You chose to demand our surrender. You chose war. Vextol stared at the images in shock. This is not possible. Our intelligence reports. Your intelligence reports showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. Did you really think a species that survived 10,000 years of warfare against itself would be unprepared for threats from outside? The alien commander's face had gone pale. You deliberately deceived us? We hoped you would be reasonable. We hoped you would accept our offer of peaceful contact. But you chose to make demands. You chose to threaten our families. You chose to give us an ultimatum. Philip stepped closer to the screen. Now I am giving you one. You have 24 hours to leave our space. If you are still here when the deadline expires, we will show you why humanity has never lost a war when we are forced to fight. You cannot defeat 12,000 ships. Commander, Philip said with a cold smile, you still don't understand. You're not facing a few dozen colonies and 100 ships. You're facing the entire human race. And we have been preparing for this fight our entire existence. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, the bridge crew of the New Horizon could hear their own heartbeats. Sir? Dr. Brooks asked quietly. How many ships do we actually have? Captain Jake Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the massive human fleet that was assembling. Ships were appearing from everywhere, hidden bases, disguised installations, camouflage positions throughout human space. Enough, he said, more than enough. The Zephyrian fleet continued its advance, but now High Commander Vextol was having doubts. For the first time in his career, he was facing an unknown enemy, and that enemy had just revealed they had been lying about. Everything from the very beginning, the countdown to war had begun. The 24-hour deadline had passed. High Commander Vextol stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as the massive Zephyrian fleet moved deeper into human space. Despite his growing doubts, he had decided to call the humans' bluff. No species had ever successfully resisted the Zephyrian Empire. All ships, advance to attack formation, Vextol commanded. We will begin with the outer colonies and work our way toward their homeworld. The first target was the mining colony on Kepler 442b. It appeared defenseless on their sensors, just as their intelligence reports had indicated. A small settlement, with basic mining equipment and perhaps a few hundred civilians. "Fleet Commander," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting some unusual readings from the mining colony." "What kind of readings?" Vextel asked. "Energy signatures that don't match civilian equipment." "Perhaps they have better technology than we estimated. It matters not. Begin the attack." The first wave of Zephyrian fighters approached the colony. Lieutenant Amy Carter watched them come from the command center that had been hidden beneath the mining facility. Around her, dozens of military personnel worked at combat stations that had been concealed for 3 years. "Incoming fighters bearing 270, reported Sergeant Tony Williams from the sensor station. 48 ships, standard attack formation. "Activate defense grid," Amy ordered. What the Zephyrians had thought was mining equipment suddenly transformed. Massive railguns rose from hidden positions. Energy shields flickered to life around the colony. Fighter squadrons launched from concealed hangars built into the mountainsides. "What in the void is that?" The lead Zephyrian pilot screamed as the first railgun fired. The magnetic projectile, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, tore through his squadron like they were made of paper. The mining colony that was supposed to be helpless had just destroyed half the attack force in 30 seconds. "Impossible!" Vextel shouted as he watched the tactical display. "How can a mining colony have that kind of firepower?" His question was answered when similar transformations began happening across human space. Research stations revealed massive weapon arrays. Trading posts deployed fighter wings. Communication relays became command centers coordinating defensive operations. On the lunar base, Lieutenant Colonel Ben Rodriguez commanded the defense platform that the Zephyrians had mistaken for a simple communication relay. Guardian Station was actually one of humanity's most powerful military installations, hidden in plain sight. "Enemy capital ships entering firing range," reported his weapons officer, Captain Michelle Davis. 12 dreadnoughts, moving in standard formation. "Target their lead ships," Ben ordered. "Show them what human weapons can do." The Guardian Station's main guns had been disguised as communication arrays. When they fired, the beams of concentrated energy cut through Zephyrian shields like they didn't exist. The lead dreadnought exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from 100,000 kilometers away. "Shields down! Shields down!" screamed the captain of the second Zephyrian ship as human weapons tore through his hull. "We need reinforcements!" But reinforcements were having their own problems. Throughout human space, the Zephyrian fleet was discovering that they had walked into a trap. Every target they had planned to attack was actually a military installation. Commander Steve Johnson operated from a hidden facility deep inside Earth's moon. His job was electronic warfare, and he had been listening to Zephyrian communications. Since the moment their fleet entered human space, "All units, this is command," Steve transmitted to human forces. "Enemy communications are compromised. We have access to their tactical network. They can't coordinate their attacks." The Zephyrians found themselves fighting blind. Their communications were being jammed or intercepted. Their sensors were showing false readings. Their tactical computers were providing incorrect data. "What is happening?" Vextel demanded as his fleet began to fall apart around him. "Why can't we communicate with our ships?" "Sir, the humans appear to have superior electronic warfare capabilities," his communications officer reported. "They're inside our network. They know everything we're planning before we do it." Dr. Helen Parker coordinated the human response from the lunar military complex. The woman who had spent her career studying alien cultures was now helping to defeat them. She watched as human forces across dozens of star systems responded to her orders. "All stations execute Plan Delta," she transmitted. "Begin Phase 2 operations." Phase 2 revealed the true extent of human military preparation. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields and behind moons suddenly appeared. Stealth technology. that had been developed during centuries of human warfare rendered entire fleets invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Major Tony Williams commanded one of these stealth fleets. His ships seemed to materialize from empty space, appearing behind Zephyrian formations and disappearing before the enemy could respond. "Ghost Squadron to all units," Tony transmitted. "We are weapons-free. Show them why we spent so long fighting each other." The human ships moved like predators. They appeared, struck, and vanished before the Zephyrians could target them. Weapons that had been designed to penetrate human shields and armor made short work of alien defenses. Captain Michelle Davis piloted the stealth destroyer Silent Thunder through the Zephyrian fleet. Her ship could phase in and out of normal space, appearing just long enough to deliver devastating attacks. "Target acquired," she reported as she locked onto a Zephyrian cruiser. "Firing torpedoes." The torpedoes were not like anything the Zephyrians had encountered. They were designed to defeat human point defense systems, which were far more advanced than anything the aliens possessed. The Zephyrian cruiser exploded before its crew realized they were under attack. "Where did that come from?" Vextal screamed, as another of his ships died. "I don't see any enemy vessels." "Sir, our sensors can't detect them," his tactical officer replied. "They appear to have stealth technology beyond anything we've encountered." The truth was that human stealth technology had been developed through centuries of warfare against other humans. When humanity finally stopped fighting itself, they had become very good at hiding from enemies who knew exactly what to look for. Admiral George Phillips watched the battle from Earth Command. The tactical display showed the Zephyrian fleet being systematically destroyed by forces they couldn't see, couldn't track, and couldn't understand. "Status report," he requested. "Enemy forces down to 40% strength," reported General Carol Martinez. "We have lost 12 ships and 3 installations. Enemy casualties are over 7,000 vessels." "Acceptable losses," Phillips replied. "Continue the operation." The battle continued for 6 hours. The Zephyrian fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming, was reduced to scattered groups of damaged ships trying to escape. Their weapons couldn't penetrate human shields. Their sensors couldn't detect human ships. Their communications were compromised. "All ships retreat," Vextal finally ordered. "Fall back to the outer system." But even retreat was difficult. Human ships pursued them, appearing from nowhere to destroy stragglers. The Zephyrian fleet that had entered human space with such confidence was now running for its life. "Sir," Vextal's tactical officer reported, "we have lost over 8,000 ships. The humans are not pursuing beyond the system boundary." Vextal stared at the tactical display in shock. The mighty Zephyrian fleet had been destroyed by enemies they couldn't see using weapons they didn't understand. In 6 hours, humanity had accomplished what no other species had managed in 1,000 years. "Get me a communication channel too." "The human fleet," he ordered. Admiral Phillips appeared on the screen, his expression calm but cold. "High Commander, I trust you have reconsidered your position." "How?" Vextal asked. "How did you destroy our fleet so easily?" "We warned you," Phillips replied. "We told you that humanity has never lost a war when we are forced to fight. We told you that we spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare against ourselves. You chose not to listen." "But this is impossible. No species has ever spent their entire existence preparing for war," Phillips interrupted. "Every human colony is a military base. Every human ship is a weapon. Every human citizen is a soldier. We have been ready for this fight for thousands of years." Vextal looked at the remains of his fleet. "What happens now?" "Now you return to your empire," Phillips said. "You tell them what you have learned. You tell them that humanity will defend itself and any other species that asks for our protection. You tell them that the age of galactic conquest is over." The transmission ended. The surviving Zephyrian ships began their long journey home, carrying news that would shake the foundations of their empire. They had encountered something they had never faced before, a species that was better at war than they were in human space. The cleanup began. But Admiral Phillips knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not like other species. They were protectors, not conquerors. And they were very, very good at their job. The emergency session at Earth Command was different this time. Instead of defensive planning, Admiral George Phillips was discussing something that shocked even his most experienced officers. Humanity would not simply defend, they would pursue. "Sir," General Carol Martinez said carefully, "are you suggesting we follow them back to their empire?" "I'm not suggesting it, General. I'm ordering it," Phillips replied. "The Zephyrians have conquered 43 species. They will regroup, rebuild, and try again. We end this now." Captain Jake Morrison, recently promoted to admiral after his performance during first contact, raised his hand. "Admiral, we're talking about attacking an empire that spans 3,000 star systems." "We're talking about liberating 3,000 star systems," Phillips corrected. "Every species they've conquered is a potential ally. Every world they control is filled with people who want freedom." Dr. Kevin Walsh pulled up a holographic map of Zephyrian space. "Based on our intelligence from their communications, their empire is organized in a strict hierarchy. If we can destroy their command structure, the entire system will collapse," Phillips nodded. "Major Frank Collins will lead Operation Exodus. Frank, I want you to take a strike force and begin dismantling their military infrastructure. Start with their fortress worlds." Major Frank Collins was humanity's expert on assault operations. He had spent 20 years developing tactics for attacking heavily defended positions. Now he would use those skills against alien targets. "Sir, how large a force are we talking about?" Frank asked. "Everything we can spare. I want 500 ships for the initial strike. We'll send more as they become available." The room fell silent. 500 ships was a massive force by human standards. It represented nearly a quarter of humanity's active fleet. "Admiral," Jake said, "won't this leave our own space defenseless?" "Our space doesn't need defending anymore," Phillips replied. "Word of our victory is already spreading across the galaxy. Every potential aggressor now knows what happens when you threaten humanity. Our best defense is making sure this never happens again." 3 days later, Captain Susan Lee stood on the bridge of the heavy cruiser Retribution as it approached the first target. Kepler Prime was a Zephyrian fortress world, home to over 50 million of their citizens and protected by what they considered impregnable defenses. "Orbital defense platforms coming online," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Paul Adams. "Looks like they were expecting us." "Of course they were," Susan replied. "Their survivors told them we were coming." "Show me what we're facing." The main screen displayed a planet surrounded by massive defense stations. Energy shields covered the surface. Fighter squadrons patrolled the space around the world. It looked like an impossible target. "Sir," Paul said, "intelligence reports indicate this world has never been successfully attacked. The Zephyrians consider it their strongest defensive position." "They haven't faced human assault tactics," Susan replied. "Begin Operation Hammer." Fall. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human ships didn't attack the defenses directly. Instead, they used tactics developed during the siege of Luna Station 200 years ago. Stealth ships appeared inside the defense perimeter, having somehow bypassed the outer shields. Electronic warfare specialists jammed the planetary communication networks. Kinetic bombardment platforms materialized from nowhere and began systematic destruction of key facilities. "Impossible," screamed the Zephyrian planetary commander as his defenses crumbled around him. "How did they get through our shields?" The answer was that human military engineers had spent centuries learning how to break defensive systems. Every shield technology had weaknesses. Every fortress had vulnerabilities. Humans had become experts at finding them. Commander Paul Adams coordinated the assault from his command ship. His job was psychological warfare, and he had been studying Zephyrian culture for months. "All units, begin broadcasting liberation messages." "On all frequencies," Paul ordered. "Let the subject populations know help has arrived." The messages were simple but effective. They were broadcast in dozens of languages, reaching every species the Zephyrians had conquered. The same message repeated, over and over. This is the Human Liberation Force. We are here to free you from the Zephyrian Empire. Resist your oppressors. Help is coming. The effect was immediate. Across Zephyrian space, conquered species began to revolt. Slave workers sabotaged military facilities. Oppressed populations attacked their guards. The rigid control system that had held the empire together for 1,000 years began to crack. On the industrial world of Vega 7, a species called the Novan had been enslaved for 3 centuries. When they heard the human broadcasts, they rose up against their Zephyrian overseers. The humans have come, shouted Krell, a Novan leader who had spent his life planning for this moment. The empire can be defeated. Fight for your freedom. The Novans had been forced to build weapons for the Zephyrian military. Now they turned those same weapons against their oppressors. Across the planet, military facilities exploded as the enslaved workers claimed their freedom. Dr. Carol Martinez worked with human intelligence services to exploit every weakness in the Zephyrian command structure. The rigid hierarchy that had enabled their conquests became their greatest vulnerability. Target confirmed, Carol reported to Admiral Phillips. High Command Station Zeta 9 houses the sector military coordinator. If we eliminate it, their entire regional defense network will collapse. Do it, Phillips ordered. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Murphy led the assault on the command station. His specialty was combined arms tactics, coordinating different types of military units to achieve maximum effectiveness. Ghost Squadron, begin your approach, Ryan transmitted. Storm Battalion, prepare for boarding operations. The attack was swift and deadly. Human stealth ships appeared around the command station and disabled its defenses. Assault troops in powered armor boarded the facility and systematically eliminated the command staff. Within 2 hours, the entire Zephyrian defense network for 100 star systems was without leadership. Sir, reported Ryan's communications officer, we're receiving surrender requests from 47 Zephyrian installations. They want to negotiate. No negotiations, Ryan replied. Unconditional surrender or destruction. Those are their only options. The word spread quickly through Zephyrian space. The humans were not interested in conquest or slavery. They wanted the complete dismantling of the empire. Every Zephyrian military facility was a target. Every command center was marked for destruction. High Commander Vextal, now commanding what remained of the Imperial fleet from a mobile headquarters, watched his empire crumble around him. In 6 months, the humans had accomplished what he thought impossible. Sir, reported his aide, we've lost contact with 17 sector commands. The humans have destroyed our supply networks. Our fleets are scattered and running low on ammunition. How many ships do we have left? Vextal asked. Perhaps 3,000 scattered across a dozen systems. Most are damaged or undermanned. Vextal stared at the tactical display. The Zephyrian Empire, which had taken 1,000 years to build, was falling apart in months. The humans were everywhere, appearing from nowhere to destroy military targets and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Phillips. The human admiral appeared on the screen, his expression as cold as it had been during their first encounter. High Commander, I trust you can see the situation clearly now. What do you want? Vextal asked. I want you to understand what you have created, Phillips replied. Your empire enslaved dozens of species. You thought you were strong because you could defeat peaceful civilizations. Now you face the consequences. You cannot destroy an entire empire. We're not destroying it, Phillips said. We're liberating it. Every world you conquered is being freed. Every species you enslaved is being given the chance to govern itself. Every military installation you built is being dismantled, but without the empire there will be chaos. These species cannot govern themselves. They will learn, Phillips replied, with our help if they want it, without interference if they prefer, but they will never again be slaves to anyone. The transmission ended? Vextol looked around his bridge at the faces of his remaining officers. They had served the Empire their entire lives. Now that Empire was dying and there was nothing they could do to stop it. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly. "What are your orders?" Vextol was quiet for a long moment. "Send a message to all remaining Imperial forces. Order them to fall back to the homeworld. We make our final stand there. And if the humans follow us, then we discover whether they show mercy to defeated enemies," Vextol replied, "because we cannot defeat them. That much is now clear. Across the galaxy, the impossible was happening. The Zephyrian Empire was collapsing. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were tasting freedom for the first time. And at the center of it all were the humans, the species that had warned them to run." 6 months after first contact, Admiral George Phillips stood on the bridge of the captured Zephyrian flagship in orbit around Zephyr Prime. The once mighty empire had been reduced to a single star system. Their military was completely destroyed. Their subject worlds were free. "Sir," reported Captain Jake Morrison, now serving as Phillips' chief of staff, "the last Zephyrian military installation has surrendered. The empire no longer exists." Phillips nodded as he looked down at the blue and purple world below. Zephyr Prime was beautiful, with crystal cities that sparkled like jewels across the continents. It was hard to believe that such beauty had been the center of so much suffering. "What about High Commander Vextol?" Phillips asked. "He's requesting a meeting. He wants to discuss surrender terms. Bring him aboard, but keep him under guard." An hour later, Vextol stood in the flagship's conference room. The alien commander looked older than he had 6 months ago. His crystalline features seemed dimmer, and his yellow eyes had lost their cold confidence. "Admiral Phillips," Vextol said, "I am here to surrender the remaining forces of the Zephyrian Empire." "There are no remaining forces," Phillips replied. "Your empire is gone, your military is destroyed, your conquered worlds are free. What exactly are you surrendering?" "My people," Vextol said quietly. "The civilians on Zephyr Prime. They had no part in the Empire's actions. They are innocent." Phillips studied the alien commander for a long moment. "What do you think we plan to do with them?" I do not know. In our empire, conquered populations are enslaved or eliminated. I assume you follow similar practices." "We don't," Phillips said. "Your people will be free to govern themselves, just like every other species we have liberated. But they will never again be allowed to conquer others." Vextol looked confused. "You are not going to enslave us?" "Why would we? We didn't fight this war to build an empire. We fought it to end one." The alien commander sat down heavily in his chair. "I do not understand. If you do not seek conquest, why did you pursue us across the galaxy?" "Because," Phillips said, "we could not allow you to regroup and attack other innocent species. The age of galactic empires is over. From now on, species that want to conquer others will face humanity." Meanwhile, across the former Zephyrian Empire, newly liberated worlds were learning to govern themselves. On Vega 7, the Novan people were holding their first free elections in 3 centuries. Krell, the resistance leader who had helped overthrow the Zephyrian overseers, stood before a crowd of thousands. "Today we choose our own leaders," he announced. "Today we decide our own future," the crowd cheered. Children who had been born into slavery were now free citizens. Adults who had never known freedom were learning what it meant to make their own choices. Dr. Lisa Brooks worked with former Zephyrian scientists to establish new research programs. The woman who had first encountered the aliens was now helping them adapt to their new reality. "The transition will be difficult," she explained to a group of Zephyrian researchers. "Your society was built around conquest and domination. You'll need to find new purposes. What would you suggest?" asked Dr. Zelen, a Zephyrian scientist who had spent his career developing weapons. "Help the species your empire hurt," Lisa replied. "Use your knowledge to repair the damage that was done. Show the galaxy that Zephyrians can be builders instead of destroyers." The suggestion sparked something in the alien scientist's eyes. For the first time in months, He looked hopeful. Admiral Phillips announced the formation of the Galactic Liberation Council from the bridge of the flagship. Representatives from dozens of species appeared on screens around him as he addressed the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire is no more, he declared. Every species they conquered is now free. But freedom must be protected. The Council will ensure that no species ever again suffers under galactic tyranny. The response from across the galaxy was immediate. Species that had lived in fear of the Zephyrians for centuries celebrated in the streets. Other empires that had been considering expansion suddenly reconsidered their plans. On the industrial world of Kepler 186f, a species called the Kavans had been planning to conquer their neighbors. After watching the destruction of the Zephyrian Empire, their leaders held an emergency meeting. The humans destroyed 12,000 ships in 6 hours, reported General Vex, their military commander. They pursued the Zephyrians across 3,000 star systems and dismantled their entire empire in 6 months. "What are you suggesting?" asked Emperor Korv. "I am suggesting we abandon our expansion plans and request membership in this Liberation Council. The humans have made conquest impossible for any species in the galaxy." Commander Steve Johnson established the Galactic Communication Network from his facility in Earth's moon. The system that had helped coordinate the war against the Zephyrians now served a different purpose. "All peaceful species can now communicate instantly across the galaxy," Steve announced. "If any empire threatens you, help will come. You are no longer alone." The network connected thousands of worlds that had never been able to speak to each other. Species shared technology, culture, and friendship across vast distances. For the first time in galactic history, cooperation was stronger than conquest. High Commander Vextal remained as a prisoner of war, but his treatment surprised him. He was allowed to speak with his family, to read, and to watch as his people adapted to their new reality. "Why do you treat me with such respect?" he asked Admiral Phillips during one of their regular meetings. "Because," Phillips replied, "you were a soldier following orders. You believed you were serving your people. That doesn't excuse what your empire did, but it doesn't make you evil. In our empire, defeated enemies were tortured or killed." "That's why your empire failed," Phillips said. "Fear and cruelty make enemies, not allies. We prefer to make friends." "Even of those who tried to conquer you?" "Especially of those who tried to conquer us." Who better to warn others about the futility of aggression? The conversation was being recorded and broadcast across Zephyrian space. The people saw their former military commander being treated with dignity by the humans who had defeated them. It changed how they thought about their former enemies. Dr. Helen Parker coordinated the establishment of human colonies throughout the former empire. But these were different from the hidden military bases that had defeated the Zephyrians. These were open settlements where humans worked alongside alien species as equals. "Our new colonies will serve as protection for liberated worlds," she explained to the council. "But they will also be centers of learning and cooperation. We want to share what we know with anyone who wants to learn." The colonies became symbols of the new galactic order. Human children played with alien children. Human scientists worked with alien researchers. Human artists created works that celebrated the diversity of galactic civilization. Captain Susan Lee, now Admiral Lee, commanded the new human protection fleet. Her ships patrolled the galaxy, watching for signs of aggression or oppression. "Protection fleet to merchant vessel Harmony," she transmitted to a Novan cargo ship that was being threatened by pirates. "We are en route to your position. Help is coming." The pirates, seeing human ships approaching, immediately fled. The reputation of humanity's military had spread across the galaxy. No one wanted to face the species that had destroyed the Zephyrian Empire. 1 year after first contact, Admiral Phillips returned to Earth for the first time since the war began. He stood in his old office, looking out at the planet that had spawned the galaxy's protectors. "Status report," he requested from his aide, Colonel Ryan Murphy. 43 species are now free and self-governing, Ryan reported. 12 former Imperial powers have requested membership in the Liberation Council. 6 aggressive species have abandoned expansion plans. No major conflicts reported anywhere in known space. Casualties? Human military casualties remain at 12 ships and 3 installations. Allied casualties are minimal. The galaxy is more peaceful than it has been in over 1,000 years. Philip smiled. And the Zephyrians? Adapting well to freedom. Several of their scientists have made important contributions to galactic medicine. Their artists are creating beautiful works about redemption and hope. High Commander Vextal has requested permission to address the Council about the dangers of Imperial thinking. Grant his request, Philip said. The galaxy needs to hear from someone who learned the truth the hard way. The final scene showed children from dozens of species playing together in a park on New Geneva, humanity's first peaceful colony. Human children played alongside Zephyrian children, Novan children, and dozens of others dot above them. Human ships patrolled the space lanes, ensuring that this peace would last. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never threaten a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare, especially when that species had finally found something worth protecting. The age of galactic empires was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun. And at the center of it all was humanity. The species that had warned their enemies to run, then proved why they should have listened.